This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Know-How is brought to you by CashFly.
This episode of Know How is brought to you by the Ring Video Doorbell. With Ring, you can see and talk to anyone at your door from anywhere in the world using your smartphone. It's like caller ID for your house. Go to ring.com/knowhow and get up to $150 off a Ring of Security kit with their limited time offer. And by Automatic, the small adapter that turns your clunker into a smarter connected car. For more information on their brand new Automatic Pro, visit automatic.com/twit and enter the limited time offer code TWIT for $20 off the new device. Today on Grow How,
fitting out your grow tent and keeping your Groots happy.
Welcome to Know How. It's the Twitch show where we build, bend, break, and upgrade. I am Father Robert Balliser.
And I'm Patrick Delahanty.
Yeah, he's not Brian Burnett. Brian Burnett is still searching for the Lost Ark somewhere other than here in Petaluma. But we're happy to have Patrick because Patrick comes back every once in a while. You show us projects, especially with cosplay, which we're not very good at, but you are exceptionally good at. Aren't we doing an episode in a week or two where you're actually going to help us create costumes?
Yes, I'm really looking forward to that. I got some ideas.
Yeah, so if you ever really wanted to do Halloween up right, you're going to want to stay tabbed for an upcoming Patrick Delahanty episode of Know How. But first, we got to do some Grow How. It's been a while since we've done this. We like to step back a little bit every once in a while and let the people look at other projects. We've been doing a lot with Arduinos. We've been doing a lot with back-to-school projects. We've been doing a lot with more sort of soft-core DIY maker stuff. Now let's get back to Grow How. Now, disclaimer, we have to do this disclaimer. We are not experts. Patrick Delahanty is not an expert. I'm not an expert. Brian Cranky Hippo is not an expert. But we do this because, well, if you think about it, farming was really the first science, really the first technology. And it's actually still very important. In fact, you do a little bit of gardening on the side, don't you?
The only gardening I've done is making my dancing baby Groot from like 100 episodes ago. That's all I've done with plants.
Yeah.
My backyard is a disaster.
A little disaster, yeah. Unfortunately, my grow tent is a little bit of a disaster as well. Well, one of them. So I have two big grow tents, and they've seen them, and we're actually going to be outfitting one of them today. The one that I had running with the fully automated system on my Arduino, it was working really well. In fact, I think I had found the perfect balance for water and nutrients. Brian and I talked a little bit about this, which was the ones that I gave personal hand care to weren't doing as well as the ones that were automated. Except now I can truthfully report that the ones that were automated have all died because, yeah, they died.
Oh, so your personal care did turn out to be the right care.
Well, what really turned out to be the deciding factor was the fact that I misprogrammed the automated one. A while back, I was doing some code. I couldn't find exactly what went wrong, but I think what happened was I did not check inputs, and the real-time clock must have glitched out at some point and sent like some weird date value, and the Arduino freaked out, and it swapped the pins for the nutrients and the water. So it's, you're supposed to do like 10 parts water for 1 part nutrient. It was doing 10 parts nutrient for 1 part water, and everything just burned.
I think when you crossed the meridian for IFA and the time zone went to positive instead of negative, that's something.
Yeah. Well, one automated system that did not suffer an IFA disaster was our AeroGarden. You may remember this. This is the AeroGarden that we had from the beginning of our Grow How episodes. Let me turn the light off. It's giving me a low water light right now because, well, I haven't really taken care of it. You notice they're wilting a little bit. This is that same basil that we planted all the way at the start of Grow How. We've trimmed it back. This is the one that was flowering. It's back to having that lovely lemony basil flavor that I love so much. And you'll notice, because I've been trimming it, this is a lot bushier. I mean, especially this one. This is the issue that we ran into last time, where we just let it grow wild, and when you let it grow wild, it just tends to shoot straight up.
Yeah.
And that's not super helpful. But if you look at this, if you go back to that side view, Kara, you'll notice like how many times this has split off from the main branch. There used to be one stalk going up. Now there's like 12. And the reason why that happens is because I've been topping, I've been cropping, I've been trimming back, and every time you trim back, it actually develops 2 shoots where there was 1.
So you're creating a fuller plant.
A much fuller plant. And this is what we want out of our herbs, because we don't want tree, we want bush.
And I do know that's true about gardening, that if you trim your bush, then it gets fuller.
It gets fuller, right,
Yeah.
exactly. And I know Kara is laughing because I can hear her over at the TD desk laughing because she's a very immature person. But folks, remember,
That's not what I meant.
bush, not tree. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're doing here. You always use a nice sharp pair of shears. When I'm doing cloning, I like to use razor, but these are really nice. These are from Apollo Horticulture. All you have to do is I like to cut about 2 nodes down. So for example, on this is 1 node. This right here, that's a 2nd node. So I'm going to cut down here. I'm going to get this away from the light because I also don't want it to get so high that it starts brushing up against the LEDs. They will actually burn. And when I do this, snip, 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 like that, first, it gives me some fresh greenage here. There you go. So you smell that. That's actually, right?
Oh yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah, it's really nice. But also, it's going to keep it away from the light source, and where I just cut it, because I cut it on this open stem here, that's now going to become 2 rather than 1. And if you do that enough times, I mean, it's from 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16, et cetera, et cetera. You can make yourself a really nice bushy plant. Now, the downside to that is this has kind of started to take over everything. This is the same issue we had when we were planting lettuce in this. And the clones that we did down here, this one is okay. This one is actually doing quite well. Let's see, it's been planted for a while now. And okay, it's developed a root system. So remember, that was a cutting. That had no roots. Now it's got that. But it's being hindered because the ones that were here before are basically sucking up all the light. So at some point, I'm either gonna have to transplant those or I'm gonna have to transplant this. Get it into a container where it can get its own light, where it's nice and by itself. Issue though, if you lift this up, the root system.
Whoa.
That is kind of bananas. So what this is most likely gonna mean is that I leave in the big ones and the smaller ones are the ones that are gonna transplant. In fact, this one has been so neglected. It's got no light whatsoever. Like it developed a few shoots, but I mean, you can tell it's not happy. I know. It's like, oh.
Now, how are you even going to get the big ones out there? Because it looks like the root system's so large that it.
Not. I mean, you can, but you're going to have to untangle roots. Basically, you just reach in there and you start pulling them. And when you do that, you're going to break roots. So just know that. I mean, your plant's going to go into shock when you do this. But if I let it keep going, eventually this entire tub is going to be nothing but the root system for that one plant.
Yeah.
This one's a little bit better. I actually do like how, remember, this actually was a clone, but it exploded because the lettuce was no longer covering it, so it was able to get all that light. And even the one in the back here, this one's getting a decent amount of light. See, I've got some decent roots on that. The greenery looks pretty good. What you want to avoid is that black. When you see that black, it typically means you're getting mold or fungus on your herbs. This I could actually pull out and say put into that aqua vase that we were building, and it would get its own light. Also, something you want to do when you're playing around with these pods in the AeroGarden, always check to make sure you're not squeezing the roots between the pod and the container, because you will pinch them off. So this is doing well. But Patrick, you may remember, Brian and I a while back, we decided that we were done with this little 6-pod. It was nice, but you know what? It just...
What's this even doing here?
Well, yeah, just throw it out. Really, just throw it out. But no, I'm not going to do that. I love this thing. But we've upgraded. And when I say we've upgraded, I don't mean we just got a bigger device. I mean, this new device...
Got a bigger device.
It is truly, oh my goodness, this thing is amazing. Let me show you a few things. So this is the largest one that AeroGarden makes. This is their Bounty Elite. So not only do I get a much bigger planter, a much bigger pot, I can make this light go up way, way higher than I could with the other one. I mean, I'm not even at maximum. I can go all the way up there.
This is asking for trouble.
Yeah, so I now have way more grow space than I did before. And I also have 9 pods instead of 6 pods. But this little screen here, this is so cool. This will actually tell me, Let me back it off so Kara can get in there. This will tell me when I need to add water. It will tell me when I need to add nutrients, and it will even let me customize like how I want to run this. What kind of vegetables am I growing? What kind of herbs have I put in there? I could change the lighting schedule. I could say, hey, you know what? This is going to be in the studio. I don't want the light on between noon and 6 o'clock because that's when we've got programming going on in here.
Right.
And that's actually how it runs right now. But it's all a touchscreen, so it gives me the ability to turn things on and off really, really easily. I mean, I can't say enough how much I like this. They've done a great job with this, and it's kind of fun just to watch it. I mean, it tells you how long has the crop been running, how much nutrients have gone through there, how much water it's used up. It's spectacular.
And I really like the sound it makes. The little water dripping sound. It's very relaxing.
Kind of tinkling. Yeah. I hear growing. Now, I will say, we've had these in here for about a week now. This one just broke out. So when I start to see the breakout, that's when I typically think I can remove the humidity dome. But I've got two here that, like the old one, they have sprouted, but they've sprouted so far down in there you can't even see them.
Oh.
So yeah, that's going to be an issue. This is Thai basil. This is Genovese basil. This is cilantro, dill, mint, Italian parsley, curly parsley, and chives. So at some point, we're going to start to see these explode. It's going to be just like it was in the smaller area garden, where it's going to grow small, very slowly for the first, like 2 weeks, and then suddenly, it's just going to explode. It'll be like these over here.
Wow.
Yeah, I like this because, not only do I get to grow a lot, but there's something about merging technology, high technology with old technology, with farming, that just makes me kind of giddy. I'm like, oh, you know what? This is a better way to grow, and I can do all this next to my desktop.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see how that mint comes out because I really like mint.
You do, yeah. Someone was telling me that I should have like little jars of this, like in my favorite pho restaurant, and you can pull fresh herbs off. They actually had that when Brian and I were in Germany. We went to a restaurant where they had potters on the table. You just pulled the particular herb that you wanted and put it in your dish. It was kind of cool.
The freshest condiments you could get.
Exactly. So we will be showing you more of this. In fact, I'm going to give a full review of this particular version. I like the small one. The big one is magnifique. But you know what? You know what I want to do now?
What?
I want to give the folks at home a little taste of what it means to outfit a grow tent.
Oh.
Yeah, because we've been doing the grow tent build. We showed them how to build it. We've showed them how to do the initial setup, but we now need to put in the life support.
Right.
We've got an empty shell. We need ventilation. We've talked about ventilation on the show. We need lighting. We've talked about lighting on the show. But now we need to put everything together inside of an enclosure so that people can actually start growing their crops, especially as we head into the winter.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. All right, we'll do that in just a bit. But first, you know what? We need to take a moment because Know-How would not be around if it were not for the generous sponsors who keep us on the air. And so let's take a moment to thank this sponsor of Know-How. Did you know that there is a burglary in the United States every 13 seconds? And most of those take place in broad daylight. I'm sorry, it's just a fact of life here that people want what you have. Well, wouldn't it be nice if there was a way for you to keep tabs on your house even when you weren't there? A way for you to have a two-way conversation with people who maybe intend your property some harm? Where there is, and it's called the Ring Video Doorbell. Now, this is what the Ring looks like. It's a self-contained kit that has all the bits and pieces, all the tools that you need to install in just minutes. Of course, that includes the drill. It includes the level so you can install it properly, and it includes the Ring Video Doorbell. Now, just like the name might sound, it replaces your current doorbell, the little button that you have that lets people know that they've got someone at the front door. Well, you could charge it with its internal lithium-ion battery, or you could use that adapter plate that you see down below so you can run it off of house power and never have to worry about charging again. But what it does with that power is what makes it magic. You see, the Ring Video Doorbell will connect to your home Wi-Fi system and will allow you to use this high-definition camera, a speaker, and a microphone to have a two-way conversation with anyone who might ring your doorbell. Now, not just that, but it's also got a motion detector so that you can find out if there's someone skulking around the front door. In fact, I bought one of these for my parents. I was a little concerned because they live in an area that's very nice, but it's filled with a lot of people who are either retired or semi-retired. And unfortunately, crooks know that that's the best place to strike. You have older people who go up to the club who go away for long hours at a time, so they'll come by, they'll ring the doorbell, and if nobody answers, they know that they've got hours to clean the place out. Folks, that doesn't happen with the Ring video doorbell. In fact, here is the device that I purchased for my parents, and this is how it works. Every time someone either rings the bell or, as you can see, anytime that motion is detected, it will record. Now, I've purchased the cloud service so that it will save it to the cloud, but it means that I can watch the videos even if I miss the call. I can find out who came to the house, when they came to the house, and what did they do. In fact, I don't really know who this lady is. Oh, no, that's my aunt. So I know that this one's okay. But like, for example, over the summer, last summer, we found a neighbor who was stealing power from our house because he wanted to power his air conditioner without driving up his bill. And across the street there, the Ring, because it has a motion detector, found a person who was coming by after the UPS truck to steal packages off of our neighbor's door. Folks, the Ring video doorbell isn't just a gadget that you'll like, it's a gadget that could save all of your other gadgets. You owe it to yourself to try it out. And right now you can try one of the Ring of security kits. That's going to include the Ring video doorbell. It may include a stick-up cam, a solar panel chime, and or a solar security sign. Now they've also got pro tips that include the Slim Video Doorbell Pro with crystal clear 1080p HD video and night vision, which is also hardwired so it never needs to charge. They've also got a wireless and weatherproof HD stick-up cam to keep an eye on other parts of your property, not just your doors, and allows you to hear and speak to visitors with two-way talk, just like the Ring video doorbell. They've also got the chime that lets you plug into any standard power outlet so that you know when you have a visitor, even if your phone is off or in another room. The illuminated solar security sign will deter intruders before they get to your door. It's a way to sort of say, hey, look, we're not the lowest hanging fruit on this tree. Folks, if you want to keep your possessions safe, you need to try the Ring video doorbell. You can join the millions of homeowners who protect their home with Ring. For a limited time, Know How listeners can get up to $150 off one of the Ring of security kits. Just go to ring.com/knowhow. That's ring.com/knowhow. And we thank Ring for their support of Know How. All right, so now it's time for us to go ahead and look at what we need to do in order to make our tents, our grow rooms, an actual viable space for you to grow whatever crop it is that you're trying to raise. Without further ado, hey, Kara, could you do me a favor and push that magic button? The last time we were in this room, I did all the general prep for our tent. That meant wiping down the surfaces so I didn't have to worry about mold spores or a dust problem. It meant protecting the floor so I didn't have to worry about water seeping through the bottom of my area, possibly destroying rooms down below. And it also meant running the electrical so that I would have power inside my tent. Now this time, we need to install the life support that goes inside of here. Now it's easy to start throwing in gear, but you actually have to follow a very specific order. You're going to see why in just a bit. You want to install your ventilation first, then your lighting, then the circulation inside the tent. If you don't follow that order, what you're going to find is that equipment gets in the way and the installation gets much, much, much more difficult. And trust me, because I know that from personal experience. There are a few pieces of support equipment that you're going to want in addition to the lighting and the ventilation and the fans that go inside the tent, namely something to help you hang. All it takes is for one heavy length to give you a lot of trouble before you realize that a ratchet system is the way to go. Now these are not that expensive. You can find them on Amazon. In fact, I bought, I think, a 20 pack of these things for about $30. So if you get the chance, get a lot, because you're going to realize that they're helpful even outside of the grow tent. The other thing that you may want to add is some sort of wide Velcro strap. A lot of the ventilation kits that you might buy do include some sort of strap system, but they use some sort of buckle. That's not as easy. Especially if this is going to be a one-person project, you want to make sure you have something that allows you to strap your carbon filter canister to the top of the tent without a lot of physical exertion. With that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the actual vent system that we're going to be using inside our grow tent. The ventilation that I've chosen for this tent is this 8-inch Hydro Planet setup. Now what I like about this is it pretty much comes all self-contained except for a couple of additional accessories that I like. It's got the 8-inch fan, it's got the carbon filter, and it's got the ducting, as well as the clamps and a speed controller. This is a bit overkill for this. In fact, this probably has about 4 times as many cubic feet per minute that it can push through as I need for this tent. It's designed for something much, much bigger. But I've done this for two reasons. One, I'm probably going to be updating my grow tent at some point and making it a grow room, which means it's one less piece of equipment that I'm going to have to buy in the future. The other thing is that even though it is inefficient to run a large fan at a lower speed, I'm going to do it to reduce the amount of noise. You can probably hear a little bit of fan noise right now from my other tents. They're at their lowest setting and it's still almost unacceptable to me. So I'm going to be using the speed controller to run this at about quarter speed, which in addition to the larger blades should give me a much lower ambient noise level, which is what I'm looking for. A few things to know about the carbon filter that you choose. First of all is that you're looking for a unit that's going to be sealed up like this. This is how you know a company actually cares. Because there is a good chance that there will be some charcoal dust, some activated carbon particles that are going to be bouncing around. You want to make sure that that's not going to get over everything the first time you open up the box. That's one of the things I like about Planet Hydro. The second thing is make sure that it includes a pre-filter. That's what this material is here. The reason for the pre-filter, as we've mentioned on Know-How, is you don't want the dust particles gumming up the charcoal, the activated carbon. It actually reduces its lifespan. What this will allow me to do is to catch those particles inside this, and then I can just wash this and put it back on. I'm good to go again for a couple of months. If you start to notice that the outflow is less and less and less, it probably means that you've got a dirty pre-filter. You just have to remove it and give it a nice wash. If you've never played with ducting before, you may want to give it a dry run before you try to install it in your tent. It can be a little frustrating when you're reaching above yourself and well, playing with unwieldy objects. Now, the ducting should fit, if it's the right size, over the mounting flange of your carbon filter and your fan. If the kit was complete, it included something like this. It's a clamp that allows you to put it over the ducting and then put the ducting over the flange and then tighten it down. If you want to add a little extra measure, what you can use is some aluminum tape around the edge to seal it up. But in my experience, the clamps, when done properly, can give you a pretty good seal. Before we get installing, let's talk pull or push. There are two main ways that you can install your carbon filter. The first is to, well, do it like this. You have the pre-filter on the outside of the filter, and the air gets sucked through the carbon filter into the fan and then disposed of outside of your grow room. Unfortunately, some people may not have enough room inside your tent, depending on how big it is. You see, this is going to go up in the ceiling, and if you've got a very low-hanging tent, or if there's a lot of crop in here, you may not have space inside the tent for this. Well, you could also do it as a push. If you do it as a push, you can take off the pre-filter and put it on the inside. Now you take the fan and you blow the air from inside the tent through the filter, and it gets filtered outside of your tent. It saves you a little bit of space, but personally, I prefer the pull method. We also need to decide how we're going to vent from the tent. Now, my preferred method is to use one of these top vents because it allows the hottest air to be pushed out. But for the education of this video, we're going to use this side vent so we can see the other side a bit more clearly than if it was popping out of the top. Now, this tent will just take an 8-inch duct. So what you want to do is you want to open up the porthole and grab one side of this through the ducting and basically just force it out. Eventually you'll get it from the outside and you'll be able to attach the fan to the outside of the ducting. Once you've gotten a little bit of the ducting through the output hole, what you need to do is pull the rest of it through. Now remember, this length, you don't need a whole lot inside the tent, just enough to get the filter to where you want it in position. The rest of this is going to be used to connect to the fan, and then from the fan to the outside in order to vent all that hot air away from your grow area. I've left just enough of the duct so that it will reach down to the floor, so it's an easier time to install this against the filter. Now there's a bracket here that I've stretched the ductwork over. It's not the easiest thing to do. You're going to have to do a little bit of a primping, a little stretching. Essentially hold the ductwork against one side of the flange and then pull it over the rest of it. You do need to get enough of this over the top of it so that when you do clamp down by turning this screw a couple of times, it gives you a nice tight seal. Otherwise what you'll get is air leakage. Now the one thing that you don't want to do is to have any holes in the duct or a leaky flange, because that means that air that doesn't go through the carbon filter will get exhausted by the fan, essentially defeating the purpose of having this in the first place. This is what the finished mounting looks like. As you can see, I've strapped it to one of the main poles on the side of the tent. The reason why I didn't put it up in the center is because I want to reserve all the space up top for the hangers that are ultimately going to hold my lights. Just as we attach the ductwork to the carbon filter inside of the tent, we now need to connect it to our exhaust fan. Now this means I'm going to take my 8-inch clamp and put it over the top of the ducting, and then just as I squeeze it over the flange on the carbon filter, I have to do the same thing for my fan. Now a quick note about this fan, you'll notice that there's a mounting flange on both sides. That's because I want to be able to draw air into the fan, and then I want to be able to exhaust it outside of the room ideally. Out here, I'm going to go ahead and exhaust it into the grow room, but that's just because I haven't yet run my exhausts. Once again, I don't think I can overstate the importance of having a larger fan. It's just so much more quiet. In fact, here's what it sounds like on full. So if I put this on full power, it eventually gets up to about this, which is loud, but it is still far more manageable than the typical 6-inch fan, the 6-inch blower that we might have. But when I put it into variable mode, I'm now running it at half speed, and this thing is even quieter than the box fan that I use in my grow room. So if you get an oversized fan, yes, you can run it slower. Now it will be less efficient, and yes, the motor will burn out a bit more quickly, but we're talking about years here, so you've got a lot of spare time. So we've got our ventilation into the tent. We have a way to make sure that we can exchange the air so that I can get enough carbon dioxide to my plants. Now I need to give it some light. I'm going to start with this. We've had this on the show before. This is a T5 fixture, just 400 watts, but it will give us a start so that we can start having our seedlings. Now, as they continue to grow, I'm going to be adding supplementary light. I'm going to add a couple of LED panels, and I might even add a couple of strips on the side so that I can get those angles that you can't get when all your lighting is up top. Now, as I mentioned at the start of this segment, I'm going to be using some light hangers to make my job a lot easier. Let me show you how those work. I'm using a pair of Vivo Sun light hangers, and they're very simple devices. They're ratcheted, which means it has a release that allows you to pull back and, extract whatever cable you've got running through it. It's got two clips on either side for quick release. What I like to do is have the ratchet side attached to the light, and I use this clip to clip up to the middle pole, the support pole. This means that I can quickly attach my lights. I can drop these all the way to the floor, and just like I did with the carbon fiber filter, I can assemble things on the floor of my grow tent rather than trying to juggle them up in space. Now, the main advantage of having a system like this is not just that it's easier to install, but using these ratchets means that I can raise and lower the lights depending on how much growth I've got out of my plants. The idea is to not have them so high that your plants start to stretch. You want to keep the node length a little bit small so you can keep things like herbs a little bit bushier, so you can keep roses from getting that really leggy look. The other thing about this is it makes it a lot easier to service. When it comes time to change out your lights, rather than having to figure out exactly where you ran all your support cables, you just unclip and replace. Now that we've got the ventilation and the lighting installed into our tent, there's one last bit that we need before we can say that the live support is ready, and that is internal fans. Now, this is important. Not only do they allow me to keep my crops cool, especially if it's a warm day and I've got my internal lights, but the gentle breeze that I create means that I get stronger stems, which means I get better growth. Now, the trick is not to point them directly at the plants. That will give you windburn, which doesn't look good. Instead, use a fan like this, which is a clip-on. This is a $10 fan. Clip it to one of the support poles and then aim it away. Remember, the idea is not to blow directly on the plants, but to create enough of a draft, enough of a breeze, that you get this nice swaying motion and it moves the heat and the carbon dioxide around the room. And to install this, you simply do that, clip it into place, and turn it on. Now this will make sure that I can have a strong set of crops at the same time that I don't burn them out from excess heat. Now this grow tent isn't finished. There's a lot more customization that we can do, everything from the lighting to increasing the ventilation to automating my irrigation. Now that's going to come in a future episode of Grow How, but for now, this is ready to grow. If you've got a soil grow, this will grow just fine. It will give you enough carbon dioxide, it will give you enough ventilation, and it will definitely give you enough light to get started. Of course, you don't need a tent this big. You don't need a grow room like this. You don't need dedicated electrical utilities like I've done for this space. But no matter how big or how small, now you know how to create life support for your next grow. When we come back, we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about pots. Specifically, how do you keep your Groots happy? Because it's actually a big thing. I mean, no roots, no plant, no harvest. No harvest, well, you have the brown thumb and sad face. But first, let's take a moment to thank another sponsor of this episode of Know How. This episode of Know How is brought to you by it.Connect. It's the connected device that turns your old clunker into a smart car. Now, we all know about that onboard data port, that little thing near the driving column that allows mechanics to find out what's going on in the controller area network of your car. Maybe there's an error code from your engine. Maybe you've got a little issue with the entertainment system. Maybe there's a serious problem with the transmission. Well, folks, that's not all that port can be used for. In fact, if you connect it to a smart device, it allows you to turn your old clunker into something akin to a Tesla or one of the new Priuses, or even something better. That device is called the Automatic. In fact, we've got the Automatic Pro. It's the new version of the Automatic that doesn't just read everything off of your onboard data port, but it also allows you to connect wirelessly, so you can get all of that information on a connected PC or a laptop. Now, this is going to work with IFTTT, so you can do endless customization, connecting your car to the rest of your life. And you can easily file, for example, business expenses with popular apps like Concur and Expensify. So it will know exactly how far you've driven, it will know how much fuel you've used, and you can set it so that it will just add that to your expense report. No more getting together at the end of the month to try to remember what you did. You can just have it all recorded in near real time. Now, this also gives you that 3G car adapter with no monthly fees or subscription that lets you know where, for example, where your vehicle is parked, or it lets you track your vehicle even when you're not with it. You can even link your car to a Nest thermostat or an Amazon Echo. Imagine being able to say, Alexa, where did I park my car? And it will give you an answer. Yes, you can actually do that. You could also get human help in a crash because it detects when you've experienced a, we'll just call it an excessive G event. It will detect those accidents, and trained responders will call for help when you can't. Automatic works on nearly every car made after 1996, and it takes just minutes to connect your car to your iPhone or Android device via Bluetooth. Plus, it even integrates with Apple Watch and Pebble. Folks, if you want to try a smarter way to drive, you want to try Automatic. Automatic Pro is normally $129.95, but when you use our exclusive offer code TWIT, you'll save $20 off. Visit automatic.com/twit for more information, and remember to use the offer code TWIT to save $20 off the regular purchase price. That's automatic.com/twit, automatic.com/twit. And we thank Automatic for their support of Know How. Okay, Patrick, so it doesn't matter how much life support equipment you have inside your tent. It doesn't matter how well you've built out your ventilation. It doesn't matter how well you've deployed your lighting if the plants have no room to grow.
Yeah.
This is actually a thing. This is something that I've learned was killing my plants. All those times that I actually tried to grow things, typically it was because my plant became root bound. This is a big problem. See, the way that roots will work is they tend to grow out from the stalk, from the stem, until they hit something they can't get through. So I mean, they can get through the dirt, they can get through the perlite, but when they hit a hard surface like, say, concrete or plastic or ceramic or clay, they'll just stop.
Yeah, obviously not getting through that.
They're not going to get through that, but they won't stop growing. So what will happen is they'll hit that surface, and then they just kind of deflect and start to grow around the outside of the pot. And what you'll see a lot of times is you'll actually see the roots take on the characteristics of the pots. We call it root bound. And Kara, actually, we have a video here of what a root bound pot looks like. This is something that I pulled out of my tent. Now, this teeny tiny plant had this.
Oh.
So this was after 2 weeks of growth, and already it's not looking particularly great here. What's going to happen is if I leave this in that pot, it will go around and around and around. It actually starts to squeeze itself. It suffocates itself. Those roots will get thicker and thicker, and what will happen is you'll get no drainage. It will keep water from draining through this thing, which means your roots are going to suffocate. They're not going to get the oxygen that they need, and ultimately, a root-bound plant may not die, but it will never be healthy.
Yeah, it's got it's taking all the nutrients from a very limited space.
Super
And
limited
it just
space.
can't support itself.
Precisely. Now, that doesn't mean that the plant's dead. I've actually been able to take root-bound plants, and what you do is you massage it. You break up the root ball. You will tear a lot of roots, so you're going to set it back quite a bit, but at least you can get it back into growing. However, you got to remember that when you stress a plant, when you make it difficult for it to grow, it will never, ever produce as much as it would have if it was not stressed. That you can't make up for that. It's not like you can dump a ton of nutrients into the soil, because that will just kill the plant. So in other words, what we're saying is we need a better way, because I need to be able to transplant my plants without worrying about whether or not they're root bound. Now, another issue, the flip side of this, is always checking to see if your plant is root bound, and in doing that, you actually destroy the plant. I've done that too, unfortunately. Yeah. We do have a solution though.
Oh.
The solution is a smart pot.
A smart pot?
A smart pot.
How does that work?
A smart pot works like this. These are actually two smart pots that I brought along with me. I have used these in my garden. The nice thing about them is they are reusable. It's fabric. So the idea of this is, remember, roots will continue to grow out until they hit something that they can't grow through. Well, they actually can grow through fabric, a little bit at least. The very tips of the roots will be able to make it. What this will do is it does a natural air pruning, because when roots hit air, when they strike air, they'll just naturally die off. And when they die off, what will happen is the root will grow, the root ball will grow another root. And rather than circling, you're going to get this very nice uniform growth, and you'll essentially be able to use the entire media that's inside the pot without destroying it. In fact, Kara, if you show them, this is what I think this is a month and a half old plant, just like the other one. But when I pull this thing down, unlike the other one where I saw solid roots just going around and around and around, look at that. It's nice and healthy, and that's because the roots will trim themselves. They air prune, and when they air prune, it means I'm not going to have to worry about getting root bound. Now, you still can get to the point where the plant's just too big for the pot, but at least it makes it easier to transplant. Now, these thinner ones, super cheap, I can actually notice how I'm actually putting it inside of another fabric pot. That's the other thing. I don't have to pull it out of the pot. I can just do this, and I'm good to go, which, yay, good for that. Now, Kara, if you could, please show them the link, because there are good fabric pots and bad. These I actually really like. They're not too expensive. This is 24/7 gardening. They offer them all the way down from 3 gallons and up. I would say 5 gallons is about as small as I want to get. I've used the 10 and the 15-gallon pots before. They're actually kind of nice, so you may want to consider that. But what we want to do is pick up a set, because you can reuse this again and again and again. This is probably the 4th time that these particular pots have been through, but this is what one of the bigger pots looks like. So Groot would be really happy. I think this is an 8-gallon pot. That's how they measure it. So how much media can you fit in there? When you do this, there's a couple of different schools on how you use these. Some people like to start with a small pot, and they transplant to a larger pot and a large pot and a larger pot. I did that for a while, and I couldn't see tremendous benefit over just starting in the large pot and just letting the plant grow into it. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll start with like a 1-gallon pot, and then I'll transplant it into this. But I would say don't do one of these things where you're going from like a 1 gallon, and then a week later you go to 2 gallons, and then a week later you go to 4 gallons. Start with 1, and then end up in the pot that you actually want to use.
Yeah, seems like it'd be easier to reduce the amount of transfers.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Doing it every week.
Yeah, and actually, Kara, if you show them the side by side, here's a direct comparison of what a root-bound plant looks like versus one that was grown inside of a smart pot. There you go. So again, side by side, do you want your roots to look like they're strangling themselves, or do you want them to look nice, moist, airy? And you know, they've always got that fine hair. Unfortunately, I don't have a microscope on my camera, but the ones that grow inside of a fabric pot, they keep the root hairs much better than the ones that are not inside of a fabric pot. Again, folks, this is definitely the way that you want to go.
Yeah, the one on the left doesn't look as healthy.
That's not healthy at all. Folks, we know that this was a lot of information we hit you with. You're going to have to worry about all the equipment that we put into our tent. You're going to have to worry about the aero gardens and how we're growing them. And of course, you need to know where you can get the smart pots. And you can always find those at our show note. And where do they get those, Patrick?
They can find them at twit.tv/KH.
Yeah, and don't forget, while you're there, not only will you find all of our back episodes, but you'll also find a way to subscribe. That's right. If you like Know How, please support us by subscribing. That will automatically get the version of choice, audio, video, high definition video, into your device of choice. Again, twit.tv/KH. Don't forget that you can also find us on the socials, specifically in Google+. Just go to Google+, look for Know How. There is an approval process just to keep out all the spam accounts. But once you're in, you get access to over 10,000 Kitas. That's know-it-alls. These are people who are on all different parts of their DIY/maker journey. We've got experts who can give you advice. We've got newbies for the experts to give advice to. And really, it's just a fun community. In fact, I think it's probably the most active community we have here at TWiT.
10,000 people? That's a literal community.
It's
like a small town.
It is a small, it's bigger than, well, maybe not bigger. It's about like the same size as Burning Man. We're Burning Man, basically. We're Burning Man on Google+. Yeah. That's not the only place you can find us. You'll also find us on Twitter. I'm twitter.com/PadreSJ.
I'm twitter.com/PDelahanty.
And of course, we've got our wonderful director, Kara Cole. And Kara, where do they find you?
Find me on Twitter at Kara080.
Yeah. Oh, Patrick, before we go, I always forget this. You know, you do a lot of stuff, a lot of content other than TWiT.
Yeah.
Can you tell the folks where they can find that?
Let's see, which one? My biggest site is animecons.com. It's a website that lists anime conventions around the world. And it has a sister site, fancons.com, that has comic and all sorts of other conventions. And so check out animecons.com and fancons.com, and hopefully you can find a convention near you, like we did back at the Silicon Valley Comic Con. It was a lot of fun.
SVCC.
Yeah.
Until next time, I'm Father Robert Balaser.
I'm Patrick Delahanty.
And now that you grow how,
Grow, do it.